Hello, Atypical Season 3, let's review it. I say review, need to point out from the beginning, I'm not reviewing the season as a whole really, I'm reviewing the portrayal of Sam's autism. Need to clarify, I'm filming this on the 1st of November 2019, anything that's come out about the show after this date, I don't know, because I'm filming it on this date. So all those people who still comment on my first ever Atypical video 2.5 years ago going, yeah, but if you'd watched the later seasons, you'd realise how good it was. It's like, yeah, if you'd read the comments where I'd said, look at the other videos I've made, you'd know what's going on. Oh, people, frustrating. I watched the season all this morning, I binged it all, and I seem to forget that whenever I do that, whenever I watch anything autism related in a large period, it really has an effect on me. I think it's because I almost empathise too much with the character, and then I end up experiencing like all the anxiety, all the stress, and just I made a load of notes, but I'm not really sure how I'm gonna go about them because I've just already tried filming this video going through note by note, but it's just gonna be too long. So I'll run through a few bits and then give a nice little summary. Cool. Just some background if no one's watched the first 2 seasons, although I don't know why you'd be watching this. They've not been the best with portraying autism in the past. The first season was absolutely horrible, in my opinion anyway. A lot of people still enjoyed it, but I just didn't like seeing Sam having every single autistic trait there ever was, because that's just not realistic. I get they have to heighten things for TV, but they took it to an extreme. They toned it down in season 2 and gave him a bit more personality, which was really nice to see. They also added a lot more autism representation as opposed to just one character. There was a whole support group full of autistic actors portraying autistic characters, and it was absolutely beautiful to see. Now, one thing I have never agreed with on this show is I don't like their marketing. I was obviously really not happy with the first trailer. Even to an extent, the last trailer they released, they just kind of omitted autism. Like, you could easily think from that trailer of season 3 that Sam's autism had almost been cured, but I knew full well they were just doing some weird marketing technique to draw new people in, and that we would get a lot of autism in the series, and we did. One of the biggest things was obviously that the trailer didn't show the support group anymore, and it was like, what, have we really lost this representation? No, it was all good. We obviously had a bit of the high school thing at the beginning. I must admit, I've almost forgotten the beginning of this series already. It was only a few hours ago I watched it really, but most importantly, at the university that Sam ended up going to, there was a disabled student bit with autistic people in, which was great to see. I think I should also point out, I'm not criticising Kier's performance at all. Been there, done that. And I actually think he does quite a good job with what he's got. I'm more focusing on what he has got, which, believe it or not, I'm going to be a lot more positive about it than I have been in the past. They made steps towards it last season, but I really think they've got there this season. Still not perfect, but an acceptable standard. Now, we knew going into this season that, of course, going to university for Sam, we're going to see a lot going wrong, and like even seeing the orientation scene, going through that hall with all the that was sending me over, and then when they sat down to do those icebreakers and Excited Evelyn popped up, I would have been off. So fair play to Sam for sticking to that, wouldn't have been able to do that. But majority of the autism things they got so right, and I don't know if like maybe Sam and I are just really similar, but so many of the things Sam was doing I was agreeing with. I'm like, not only is that getting autism right, but that's getting me. I really didn't like watching the university orientation as it continued into like the dorms and stuff like that, just because the exaggerated effects and stuff make me feel uncomfortable. It always does. But I didn't like the whole like tasty trio, whatever that was about. I don't like the bullying aspect of it, because that's what it is. It's indirect bullying. That's what would happen with me. Like, I wouldn't really realise that people were taking the mickey out of me, or even still now, you know, when I will just say something as it is, and then you have people laugh, and you're like, okay, don't know why this is funny, me just stating the fact, but right, I'll go with it. Sometimes I'm aware. I've got a fair bit of social awareness. Luckily, I say a fair bit. I've definitely got more than Sam, and I think in that scenario I would have noticed. One of the biggest notes I have throughout the series actually is Zahid. Because of course we've seen quite a lot of Zahid now, I've just realised he's an absolute idiot, really. I think idiot was the kindest way of putting it. He's really not someone who I would ever have in my life. I get it, he's just treating Sam like any of his other mates, but I don't think he has anyone else. What I'm saying with all this is, I just think if you become friends with someone on the spectrum, like you would with anybody, you would learn over time what things not to push them with, not what to push them into, etc. You know, where their line is. I would say this season, because we've seen so much of it now, it's almost got to the point of cruelty. Like Zahid, this wasn't explored in the series, but like Zahid will plant seeds and Sam will act upon them. He should know by now to not be so. Like the reinventing himself, that got Sam in quite a bit of trouble, and that was Zahid's planting. I wasn't happy with Zahid throughout the entire thing, and like, you know, throughout the fallout and stuff like that. He was just insensitive, and I don't think that's anyone that I'd ever want in my life. I didn't like that ethics teacher, that there was no empathy at all from her. Like, surely she would have seen a note that she'd got a student on the spectrum, because I think, again, she was almost being cruel with just the way she was speaking to Sam when he was late and stuff. I get you treat everyone equally, but I don't know, maybe this is just some Cloud9 world that I live in, but I don't like to see that. I don't like to see Sam getting being oblivious, because of course watching it from the outside, maybe just when I experience it I don't notice it, but I really notice it when people are being horrible to Sam by not taking into consideration how he will react to things. I really liked how a big theme of this series was showing that everybody struggles with change anyway. And like, it's quite easy to leave it at that and just go, oh, everybody struggles with change. It means that, you know, it's not that different for us. But it did make it quite clear that, like, oh, everybody struggles with university and big changes like that. Therefore, think how much more Sam will be struggling with it. I like the fact that they kind of made that pretty obvious. Generic things that I know that I picked up on, which I thought were quite good, when there were no chicken fingers and Sam didn't eat them. I found that really good, because that is me. Like, if something's not where it should be or doesn't exist, like if I've ran out of fruit downstairs, I will not eat because it's not there. Therefore, there's no alternative. But no. There was also quite a real scenario too. When Sam got that F, I remember the first time that I got a C. And it's quite funny because of course Sam ended up getting a C, but the first time I got a C was in year 8 in art. And it was a little project. I've never been good at art. I don't know why I was this bothered about it, but I just got a C and like I was crying in class and blah, blah, because I couldn't understand it. I was like, but I've only been used to getting A's and B's, so what's this? Blah. I've got some notes about later on in the series where Zahid, again, is just being a bit of an arsehole. So when he says, you couldn't understand it, you just couldn't understand it, or whatever he said, it was quite obvious what he was implying by that, going like, oh, you're autistic, you won't get it. He seems like, because he's that much of like an arsehole, the only reason he's friends with Sam is because Sam doesn't see through that, and Sam will just go to him. I just think he's taking advantage of someone vulnerable, but oh well. I loved the little flashback though to the Sam's first day working, because that was just like, yeah. I picked up on something Casey said very late on in the season, which was very, very, I'm very happy she said it. Is when they were talking about driving, and she says to Sam, she's like, you're a 19-year-old man, you can learn to drive. That's just me and my sister. My sister will just ignore the fact that I find things a bit difficult sometimes, and will state the obvious in the way of like, you're 19 years old, you're a grown adult. Oh, well, I'm 21, aren't I? I just love the way they portrayed their relationship, because Casey's very much like my sister, so it was very funny to see. Also, when Casey broke up with Evan and Sam saw it as her being selfish, I've experienced that kind of scenario, not with the relationship, but I've always, I see Lauren being selfish far more than I should, until my mum explains it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, fairs. Skip forward to the last episode and kind of the end of the penultimate. I really liked this, because even though, you know, I don't like Zahid, and I think Sam can find better people, I loved seeing the whole loyalty of Sam. Yes, there is a general thing of on the spectrum, we can be pretty loyal, but I think that goes beyond the autistic trait, and that goes into a real personality trait. To see what he was willing to do and how far he was willing to go to help his friend, I think that was the most we ever saw Sam, because there was, like that last episode particularly, there wasn't really any concentration on Sam being autistic. It was just him doing something that he wanted to do, and I almost think that's the better way of showing it as a general thing, because you're focusing on Sam, you're not focusing on what autistic thing is Sam doing now? Whether this is just him emotionally developing with age, or the writers realising that they needed to change Sam, or maybe both. But like, Sam then goes as far as to buy Paige's boat because he's worked out that will make her happy, and just, it's nice to see. It's nice to see that we can see that Sam's just a really nice guy. That's what it needs to be. He needed to have some personality. And then the last note I've actually made, I think it could end there. Like, if there wasn't another series, as a viewer, I'd be fine with that. I almost think it gave quite a nice ending. I know obviously there's still quite a few open plot threads, but yeah, I'd be cool with it ending there. So as a whole, yeah, they've improved a lot. They've got Sam being someone who struggles, but now with a personality. And to see how all of the people around him react to him, it seems a lot more realistic too, as opposed to just them interacting with some specimen. I think it helped with Elsa being less annoying this season because she wasn't being as hands-on, which didn't make Sam look as inept as he had in previous seasons. I'd love to tell myself this 2.5 years ago, but they got it all right. They've kind of sorted it. I obviously still think they're missing a 21-year-old British person who could easily play American if needed to. I just think they're missing that in the season. I really think it would do Sam good to properly have a best friend on the spectrum. Atypical producers, you know where my number's at. Well, you don't. You have my DMs and you have my email, so cool. I don't really know what else I've got to say on it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the other seasons, and it will be sad if it's over, but I don't think it will be. It's been great to see how much effort they've clearly put in to making it far more accurate, and that's all I could want. So thank you for them for doing that. I'm going to end it there. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the season. Maybe you agree with some of the stuff I've said, maybe you don't. Probably don't. There's a lot of people that seem to do that. Also, let me know your thoughts on whether there'll be a next season. If they're going to confirm one, I imagine they'll confirm it pretty soon. I don't think they have already. I would have noticed that. So yeah, this may be the last ever video I'll make on Atypical. We never know. I'll probably make a video if it gets cancelled, like doing a kind of overarching journey, more detail, but yeah. Cool. I'm going to pop away from video making for like kind of a week and a half or so, just because I've got a load of work to finish off, but then I'm done for the year, so I've got a load of time to make videos. So look forward to that. If you're here because you're new from watching Atypical, please subscribe if you want to see what it's like to live life being autistic, in obviously an authentic way. Yeah, come chill. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to go to bed because I'm knackered. Bye.